Hey guys, welcome back to another edition of Lawyered Up. My name is Jared Moore, and for the record, I am not a lawyer. And Lawyered Up is the program where we try to go through legal filings and understand them as best we can as just regular old Joes. We're going to have some updates tonight and then some new stuff. And just to let you guys know, the reason it's been so long since we had a Lawyered Up is because I took 2 weeks off for vacation over the holidays, and on the second day of vacation, I got the flu. So then I was bedridden for about 3 weeks. My throat is still recovering, but we're ready to go tonight, and so I'm going to jump right in, and I just want to remind you guys that all the filings and everything that I'm going to be talking about, there's going to be links to the stuff in the description of this video, so if you want to follow along or check out anything that I'm reading or looking at here, there will be a link in the description of the video. So with that being said, let's start off with, you may remember from previous Lawyered Up episodes, we talked about the tribal leadership dispute happening at the Tlaloc tribal town. And that dispute has gone now to the Oklahoma Supreme Court. You may remember that there was a judgment, I think it was a protective order issued out of the Mvskoke District Court. And you can see here, appealed from Mvskoke District Court. So the other parties appealed that, and I'm going to scroll down here, and you can see at the bottom, assigned to Supreme Court, and that's the Oklahoma Supreme Court. So this case will be heard in the Oklahoma Supreme Court real soon, you would assume, and maybe we'll see what the judgment goes there, and then if that goes up to the federal level, we'll see what's going on at that point. Who knows where this is going to end? Okay. One of the other cases we've been following is the Stroble tax case. If you guys don't remember that, that's about whether tribal employees that are also tribal citizens and live on their tribal reservation can claim back taxes or no income tax, don't have to pay income taxes to the state of Oklahoma. There has been and is, Oklahoma has tax code that says that's the case, but then the tax commission has decided not to, and there's been blah, blah, blah. This has gone all the way up to the United States Supreme Court, and let me pop this up for you guys. And where we're at with that right now is it was distributed for conference on 1/9/2026 and then again on 1/16/2026. And what this means is, so up here you guys see it's a petition for a writ of certiorari was filed. It's basically the process that you go through to have your case heard at the United States Supreme Court. And these distributed for conferences here means that those are conference days where the justices are having their clerks bring them a bunch of cases and they sift through them and decide which ones they want to hear. So at this point, at any time we could hear whether they're going to grant the writ of certiorari or whether they're going to deny it. If they grant it, then the United States Supreme Court will hear this case, and if they deny it, then that's it, and it'll go back down to the Oklahoma Supreme Court's decision, which was no, Stroble cannot file for her back income taxes and so on and so forth. Let's see here. What's next on my list? Okay, so we are at the Freedmen update. So you guys may have followed in the previous Lawyered Up we had in December, the status reports that were required to be filed in that case. And we went over that December status report. I did want to show you guys some interesting stuff. There's been two cases here. Let me pop this up for you. So I'm on the Creek Nation Supreme Court's website there. You can see there's been two cases here that they've issued a final opinion for in 2026. One of these cases, both of them are kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Procedural determinations. One of them is an interlocutory decision, which is basically that one of the decisions is saying that at what the Supreme Court decided was that at the Creek Nation and the district court in a criminal trial, you can have the jury consider the criminal sentencing, right? And then the other case was that the Supreme Court decided that if there was this other case, the defendant had a plea deal, but when they filed the plea deal, the case was closed, but it was closed without prejudice, which means it could be brought again. And then they brought it again, and the person said, "No, I had a plea deal." Anyway, United States or the Creek Nation Supreme Court in that case said, yes, because it was without prejudice, the case can be brought again. So that's those two. I'm not going to go through those just because there's not really any big issues in there. But back to the Freedmen, let's look at where we are. You can see we've covered all this stuff. The only new thing is this respondent's objection and motion for leave to respond. And what that is the lawyers for Grayson and Kennedy basically go over the after the status report was filed, they went through and said, hey, they're just stalling, et cetera, and they're asking the court permission for them to file a response to the reports. So, and that the court hasn't granted permission on that yet either. And you can see also the other thing we would expect to see next is a new order from the Supreme Court on when the next monthly status report is due, because in the previous order, that's what they said would happen. They said, we'll tell you when you need to turn in these status reports and so on and so forth. Now, if you want to know when a status report would even be able to be filed or what could be in it, right? Where we're going to see action on this case next is going to be at the National Council, and it should be in the agendas. Let me pop these up. This is the National Council's website, and if you go to the agendas, right, you can see here 2026. And so if they're going to pass any changes to code to facilitate granting the Freedmen or Grayson and Kennedy their citizenship cards, it'll appear on one of these agendas. There is, I believe, on the Hugh agenda, let me zoom in here, there is some, here it is. There is an appropriation here, a supplemental appropriation to the Creek Nation Citizenship Office of $458,079. If we click through that, though, it doesn't really tell us what it's for. It just says they need some more money, basically. It doesn't mention the Freedmen or anything, but it could be related to the Freedmen if they're anticipating having to process more citizenship cards and more people for citizenship. They would need more money to do that. So. But this is where we would see, let's check the LNC. This just popped up. I don't think anything would be going through LNC, but let's look. No, this is property, housing, cultural preservation, cultural and humanities, language, housing, ramp assistance, exceptions. So nothing there that is referencing the Freedmen. Okay, now I did want to show you guys this because it's cool. The link to this report is in the description of this video. I encourage you guys to check it out. A citizen turned me onto this. I didn't even know that it happened, so Madota, that citizen, I don't want to out you in front of everybody, but what is this? This is a report to the Committee on Indian Affairs of the U.S. Senate, and it was filed in December 2025. And it's information on Freedmen descendants of the 5 tribes. Excuse me, I got to cough really quick. So what's cool about this? Well, number one, this is a great document. If you don't know very much about the Freedmen, it covers the whole issue and the history of it and everything for all of the 5 civilized tribes, not just the Creek Nation. It tells all these different things. And moreover, they used some analysis. This is the interesting part. They used some analysis here. You can see demographic simulation models for estimating the 5 tribes' Freedmen descent population. So what they did was they went and did some analysis, and you can read their process here. They go into detail on it to estimate how many freedmen citizens in the modern era, the descendants, could exist for each of the tribes. So what I'm going to do is go down here to the Muscogee Creek Nation, and we're going to, this is the history that I was talking about. Let's go on down here. Well, where is it? Give me 1 second, guys. I want to find those numbers. Maybe it's up here. It also talks about the differences in criminal jurisdiction on the federal level for freedmen descendants as opposed to Creek by blood descendants. And again, this report was compiled by, here we go. This is what I was looking for. Let me pop this, come back really quick. This report was compiled by the Government Accountability Office for the Senate. So that's where this information is coming from. It's not coming from me. But let's take a look at these numbers, because I know this is one of the things citizens have been talking about, is how many possible, how this could increase the population, right? And so if we look at Muscogee Creek Nation, you see this first column is Freedmen on the Dawes Rolls, actual counts 1907. Muscogee Creek Nation had 6,777 freedmen. So a low estimate, this first column is the low estimate of how many there could be today, is 43,500. And then the high estimate is 117,300. So I don't know if you guys, right now, the Muscogee Creek Nation is around 100,000 citizens. So if the high estimate that they have here is true, that means the population of the Creek Nation is going to double if all of those descendants enrolled. So that's something to keep in mind. It also has the other 5 tribes. But this is a great report. I encourage you guys to go and check it out. It's pretty awesome. So those are the updates so far. Now we'll get into the meat and potatoes. I'm going to take a look at these comments real quick. T.Y. Pearl says, please try to get Tulsa Mayor Monroe Nichols to come on to discuss the possibility of entering into an agreement similar to the recent criminal jurisdiction for tribal hunting fishing rights. We can try to do that, absolutely. T.Y. Pearl says, can you briefly discuss the items that will be on the ballot in May and the status of the veto and legal arguments in the explanation issued by the chief on council pay raises? I can go into that, but I believe that we have a story on Muskogee Media right now. Let me go through the MCN versus the ODWC lawsuit filing, and then after that, maybe I can hunt that up. T.Y. Pearl says, please note this Freedmen document isn't legally binding, and the methodology behind the estimates is far from scientific. Plus, it's riddled with omissions that, if included, will hurt Freeman's case for citizen being defined as Indian under federal law. Abilov says, aren't they supposed to follow the Creek Nation Supreme Court for the case? Yeah, which case are you talking about, Abilov? Are you talking about the Freedmen case? Yes, all the updates will be in the Muscogee Creek Nation Supreme Court website too. The reason I was mentioning the National Council is because the code changes will have to go through National Council committees before they can be enacted. And so that's literally the first place you'll see any code changes is those committee meetings. And then when they file the reports with the Supreme Court, they were only going to be able to mention stuff that they had done through those National Council committees. Okay, so let's jump over here to, well, let me get it. It closed it for some reason. Let me open it back up. What we're going to look at right now is the Creek Nation has filed a lawsuit against the Oklahoma Department of Wildlife Conservation, and this is all about hunting and fishing licenses. So, and I'm going to read the filing just because it gives a very good recap of what's going on and those things. But keep in mind while I'm reading it that this is the filing by the Muscogee Creek Nation. So let me pop it up. So you can see here, Northern District of Oklahoma, Muscogee Creek Nation versus Wade Free in his official capacity as Director, Oklahoma Department of Wildlife Conservation, and Russell Cochran, his official capacity as Special Prosecutor appointed by the governor. You may be like, what's that all about? Well, we're going to read it. So I'm going to jump ahead a little bit here and start at number 3, okay? The Creek Reservation is a federally protected Indian reservation and hence constitutes Indian country under federal law. See McGirt v. Oklahoma. You guys know what that is. The nation enjoys the authority to regulate hunting and fishing by Indians within its reservation as an aspect of tribal sovereignty. That means we can issue the hunting fishing licenses. That authority is exclusive of state authority, absent an express conferral of state authority by Congress. What does that mean? They're just saying that we're the only ones that can issue the hunting licenses for the Indians unless Congress says the state can. Accordingly, with respect to the nation's own citizens, where the land remains in Indian country status, tribal members are not subject to state regulation of hunting and fishing absent congressional assent. Here we go. The nation likewise enjoys exclusive authority, absent contrary indication by Congress, to regulate hunting and fishing within its reservation by 5 tribe citizens engaged in such activity pursuant to the 5-tribe reciprocity agreement. As set forth below, the interests of the nation and the United States in the nation's exclusive regulation of those Indians are compelling, and the ODWC has no cognizable interest in exercising concurrent jurisdiction over them, rendering any authority it might claim preempted. Defendants' lack of jurisdiction to apply state and hunting fishing laws to nation's citizens and to 5 tribe citizens hunting and fishing under the 5-tribe reciprocity agreement goes hand in hand with their lack of jurisdiction to criminally prosecute Indians for alleged violations of those same state laws. Okay, so let me do a recap there. That's just the Creek Nation saying, hey, here's the law of the land as we understand it, and these other court decisions. We can issue a hunting license to tribal citizens, and our laws on the hunting and fishing are what cover the tribal citizens. Now I'm going to read the recap of what happened to get us here, okay? The ODWC, under the direction of Defendant Free, has declared its open disregard of these bedrock rules of federal law. On October 9th, 2025, it announced that state fish and wildlife laws apply to everyone in Oklahoma, and that ODWC game wardens will continue to enforce the law and will issue citations to anyone in violation of the state's fish and game laws, regardless of tribal citizenship. Pursuant to this policy, ODWC officials have threatened nation citizens with prosecution for hunting and fishing within the Creek Reservation pursuant to nation licensing and regulation, and a number of those citizens have acquiesced to those threats by submitting to state licensing and regulation. They have done so despite the fact that their hunting and fishing activities are lawful under nation and federal law without compliance with the ODWC requirements. Under the 5-tribe reciprocity agreement, the nation allows 5-tribe citizens to hunt and fish within the Creek Reservation in compliance with and subject to the terms of the nation's conservation code and conservation regulations. All those hunters and fishers now do so under the threat of citation and prosecution by defendants. This is where it gets interesting. Oklahoma Attorney General Gettner Drummond has informed Defendant Free that the ODWC's policy of applying state fish and game laws to Indians in Indian country finds no support in Oklahoma law, violates tribes' treaty-based rights to self-government free from state intrusion, and directly contradicts well-established federal law recognizing tribal sovereignty over hunting and fishing by tribal members on reservation lands. Attorney General Drummond accordingly directed Defendant Free to rescind the policy and dismiss all pending actions against Indians for alleged hunting and fishing violations arising in Indian country. Defendant Free has disregarded the Attorney General's repeated admonitions that the ODWC's actions under his direction violate governing law and impair tribal sovereignty, that the policy must be rescinded, and that the pending actions must be dismissed. On December 18th, 2025, Attorney General Drummond issued a formal opinion, legally binding on both defendants under Oklahoma law, that as a matter of federal law, the state of Oklahoma lacks authority to regulate hunting and fishing by Indians on their own reservations, and that it is clear that the state does not have authority to enforce ODWC Wildlife Code on a tribal citizen who seeks to harvest game on the land the federal government promised his or her tribe, and that federal law preempts the application of the Oklahoma Wildlife Code to hunting on the nation's reservation pursuant to Five Tribes Wildlife Management Reciprocity Agreement. Defendant frees continue application of state and fish game laws to nation citizens and Five Tribes citizens lawfully hunting and fishing within the Creek Reservation, and Defendant Cochran's prosecution of such tribal citizens constitute ongoing violations of federal law. Okay, I just want to take a pause here because they haven't mentioned it yet, but I wanted to mention it, and you guys are going crazy in the chat. So what's happened here is Gettner Drummond, the Oklahoma State Attorney General, said, "Hey, you guys at the ODWC, you can't do this. It's not legal, right?" And he told them to stop. They continued, and also Governor Stitt, because he couldn't get Gettner Drummond to prosecute these violations, he created a special prosecutor, and that's this Cochran guy. Okay, so that's where we're at right now, and that's what this lawsuit has resulted in. And there's a link to this whole filing there if you guys want to go through and read the whole thing. But that's where we're at, and this just got filed last month, so we're still in the process of getting a hearing. I am going to look at the chat here and see the ballot question. You guys had questions. T.Y. Pearl was asking about the ballot. Let me see if we got that story up on the website yet. The election board did announce the elections, and we contacted the election board to find out exactly what's going to be on the ballot, what amendments we're going to vote on. And I think that that's been posted, but let me look real quick, because if it has, I'll read it to you. But in short, the I don't see it. Maybe it hasn't been posted yet. Let's look. Sorry, guys. I don't see it yet. I wonder if that's been posted. Anyway, the long and the short of it is the two things that, according to the election board, the two things that are going to appear on the ballot is going to be the term limits and changing all the instances in the Constitution where it says the Muscogee, Muscogee spelling to Mvskoke, the traditional spelling. So those are the two things that we'll be voting on in May. Now that's what they say is going to be on there. I don't know if things could pass through the council, if stuff could be added. There is a possibility. And before the May election where we vote on these things, there will be should be a sample ballot posted on the election board's webpage so we can go and read the sample ballot before we actually read it at the thing. Let's see here. The chief recently, yes. It's been reported that proposal to be a widening requiring approval. What's going on with that, Mayor? So I don't see any questions here. The Islamic Center in BA, TY, you were asking about that. So I went through and watched that interview, and I think it was the mayor of Broken Arrow that was talking to Fox News, and he said if we were going to widen this road, we would have to talk to the Muscogee Creek Nation, right? He didn't say they had talked to the Muscogee Creek Nation, and so I'm gonna send an email, but I'm probably not gonna get a response on that from the Creek Nation because, like he wasn't claiming they had consulted with the Creek Nation. They were just saying that they would have to, which I don't know if they would, but that's what he's claiming. Let me see if there's anything else here. Yes. Now, Mayor Monroe Nichols, T.Y. Pearl, I think the only time we've had him on our channel is when we had that remote debate that we streamed that was in downtown Tulsa. So, well, I've covered everything that I had on my list here, guys, and we're going to keep going and keep monitoring stuff. If there are any updates, and there are a lot of cases going on, and I'm trying to keep up with all of them. If we get any updates, we'll have another Lawyered Up. And thanks for tuning in tonight. And I don't see any more questions, so I wanted to tell you guys, Mado for tuning in, and we'll see you again soon. Mado, hadum, chihichat, lees.